Hello and welcome to another tutorial on Python. Today we are going to talk about Python dictionaries. So, what are dictionaries in Python? Dictionaries are basically composite or collection data types in Python. They are used for storing multiple variables and they consist of key value pairs. So here you can see a dictionary. I've just used variable d, and then we start dictionaries with curly brackets and close it, and then in between the key and value we have colons. So here we have this key, NL is a string, so enclosed in quotes, and then colons, and then again the value is inside quotes, and every key value pair is separated by commas. This is another one, so Netherlands, Amsterdam, and Germany, Berlin, and comma, and true, 3. So you can see that we can have several data types in dictionaries. We can have strings, we can have booleans, we can also have integers. So I can say 45, I don't know, bad, for example. It's the same. So they all work. Now we can have various data types as keys, but not all data types are allowed. We will see here on restrictions on keys that lists are not allowed here. We'll get to that later. Now, this is one way of creating a dictionary by using keys and then colons and then values. Another one is by using, let's say, f, for example, equals, and I can say dict and put these things inside parentheses, and now I have different value pairs. For example, let's say again NL. I don't need actually quotes here, so I can simply say NL equals Amsterdam, and GE equals Berlin. Now you can see that I'm using equals here instead of colons. So when I use defining dictionary like that, I can use like equal signs here. Okay, now how can I access these now? So I have two. Let's print D and let's print F to see what they are. So if I print D here and I print F here, print. Now if I print these two, I get two lists actually. So two dictionaries. So I have this, the first dictionary here, and then the second one here. So this is actually the common way of making a dictionary. Yeah, but both produce dictionaries anyways. Now let's get rid of the second way and let's keep the first one. Now how can I access values in dictionaries? For example, how can I access the value of Netherlands? I can, just like lists, I can say D, and here I can say NL. So if I print this, I should get Amsterdam here, and I do. So this is one of the differences between lists and dictionaries. That is, in lists you have to have a number here, that is an index, so index 0, index 1, index 2, but in dictionaries you have to have a key. So that key could also be a number like 0, so if I say 0 here, or like say 5 for example, now if I print 5, so again I should get Amsterdam. But 5 is not about the order. It's not that it starts from 0, 1 like lists. So this is how it works. Now let's get back to our NL. And now this is one of the differences between dictionaries and lists. Other differences are about the methods. So in lists I can use -1 to access the last item in a list, but for dictionaries this doesn't work. Also for lists you have different methods like d.append and let's say Joe, it will append Joe to the end of a list, but for dictionaries this doesn't work. So if I want to print that, you will see that this attribute has not been defined for dictionaries. So this is one way of accessing values. Now, how about, I also talked about this one, now how about creating a list gradually, little by little? So we have this D here with these countries and some other things. I can also say D, and then if I want to add another key, D, and let's say BR, like, I don't know if that's for Brazil. So DBR equals Brasilia. So now I have added one key value pair to Brasilia, to our D dictionary. I can also add another list actually. So I can say, let's say L just for lists, and then here I add another list like KK, like JJ. Now if I print D, let's see what we get. You see, so we get BR for Brasilia, and L has this value, a list. So lists can also be values, just like integers, just like booleans and strings. So lists can also be values. But how can I access this? How can I access this KK? So I need to go inside the dictionary D and target the key, that is L. And now L, if I want to target the list, so I should target the index 0, right? So I make another square brackets 0, and I print, and I do not get anything. Why? Because yes, this is not inside quotes. Now I get KK. So this is how you can access that. This is the way you kind of incrementally, let's say, create dictionaries. But I said there are some restrictions on keys. You just saw that I can have lists as values, but we cannot have lists as keys. What happens if we do? Imagine that here I add a list like let's say just JJ and HH, and this list has a value of like Korea, for example. I don't know. And if I print that, you would see I get an error. Unhashable type list. It says that lists are unhashable, so they cannot be as the key of a dictionary. And what does it mean? Unhashable. Let's see what unhashable means. So if I here, let's say I print hash John. So unhashable means that if you pass something into this function, into the hash function, it should produce something. So what do you think this produces? Let's get rid of this as well. Now if I print this, it gives us a number. So this is the hashed version of John. What if I give it a number like 888? So if I hash this, I will get the same number actually. So, but it can be hashed then. It didn't produce any errors. But if I give it a list, let's say JJ, KK, what happens now? You see? Unhashable type list. So it means lists are not hashable. That is why you cannot have an unhashable type inside, well, as the key in your dictionary. So this is one restriction that we have now. Okay, now let's get to the dictionary methods. Now there are quite a few dictionary methods that you can use. For example, if you want to clear the dictionary, the items in dictionary, you don't want to remove it, you just want to clear it, you can use d.clear clear, and if I print D now, what I get is an empty dictionary. So this is the way you clear a dictionary. Now get key. So we just saw that you can have access to an item and a value in a dictionary by saying D and then NL, so it gives you Amsterdam. You can also use d.get and then NL. This gives you the same, Amsterdam. So this is another way of accessing the value of a key. Now, how can I get access to all the keys in the dictionary? I can simply print d.keys and it gives me all of them. NL, Germany, true, 45, so all the keys here. But as you can see, we have dict underscore keys. So this is actually a view. So this is not a list that we can use. So this is a view. So I can turn this into a list by saying list. So it's a list constructor. And now if I print this, you can see that I get a list instead of this. Now I think I should wait a bit. Give me a list. Give me a list. Okay, let's start it again. And indeed, I get a list of the keys. I can also use the same for values. So to get all the values in dictionary, I use the same, and now I have Amsterdam, Berlin, 3, and bad. So all the lists. Now, if I want to remove one of the key value pairs, I can use it. I can do it using pop. So I can say d.pop and then NL. Now, if I print D, what I get is everything besides Netherlands, Amsterdam. So you see, it doesn't exist. But it also, this method returns actually the popped or the removed key value pair. So if I print this, let me print this to see what it returns. So if I print it, you see Amsterdam. So it also returns the removed value. Now, if I want to remove the last item in a dictionary like this one, I use pop item instead of pop. So I can say d.pop item, and I can just print it, and you will see the item that is popped. So you should see the last one, 45 bad. So you see the tuple 45 bad. And if I print D now, yeah, this is it without the last item here. Let's get rid of that. Update. So with lists, we had extend. That is, we could insert another list into our list. With dictionaries, we can use update. So imagine that we have another dictionary called D1, and this dictionary includes IR, let's say for Iran, let's say, I don't know, some other countries like ES, Spain, for, yeah, Madrid for Spain. And if I want to append this one to this dictionary, what I can do is simply d.update and D1, that is update D dictionary using this dictionary. So now if I print D, we should get a dictionary, yes indeed, with all this new information here. Cool. Now, what else? What if we have, by the way, a duplicate key? So dictionaries do not allow duplicates. Imagine if I have another key value pair like this one. Let's put it here. And this time I say the capital of the Netherlands is actually The Hague. So what happens if I print D and update it? So d.update D1, and let's print, oops, D. What happens now? You see, the first one was NL Amsterdam and the last one was NL Hague, but this was replaced the first item because dictionaries cannot have duplicates. The ones with the same key, only one remains. That is, the last value remains and the previous ones are removed. So this one, this value got removed and this value was replaced this one. So dictionaries cannot have duplicates in them. Now copy. So how can I copy a dictionary? Well, by using copy. Not that difficult, huh? So let's say D1 equals D.copy and it returns a new dictionary for us. Now if I print D1, we should get the same dictionary as here. Easy peasy. Now this is, I think, the most important part in dictionaries, that is for loop or loop through dictionaries. So let's use a for loop. Let's say for x in D, that is for every item in D, print x. What do you think it will print for us? Will it print the keys or the values? Let's see. Print x. Let's run, and we have the keys. Netherlands, Germany, true, 45. Now what if I ask it to, for x in D dot values, print x. Now it prints all the values in D. Amsterdam, Berlin, 3, bad. I can also use keys. It gets us the keys again. But what about the key value pairs? What if I want these? Well, I want the pairs, not individuals. So I would use d.items. It gives us the key value pair. So for x, let's say for x and y in d.items, print x and y. Well, first let's remove x and y and let's print it like that to see what happens. So we get these tuples, right? So we have these as tuples. But what if I say x and y, print x and y? Now it gets rid of those parentheses and this is what we have. So we have access to key value pairs one by one. Now another one, let's say we want to use if statements. So let's say if x, let's say if NL in D, print y, let's say just for yes, else print n. What happens now? Well, we get y because NL is in D. Can I also use this one, like values, to check if NL is in the values or not? Well, I do. I can do that. And you can see NL is not in the values, it is in the keys. How about Amsterdam? And yes. So this is how we check if something exists in the values or in the keys. And you also saw the using for loop. And that's basically it for dictionaries. Thank you so much for watching and listening.